Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, viewers around the globe, or at least somewhere in the Kent region, welcome to this week's edition of Vinyl Countdown. My name's Dan Harding. I'm Head of Music Performance here at the University of Kent. And for anyone who hasn't seen this show before, this is our weekly webcast in which I invite a small group of panellists into the virtual studio with me here. And they will be competing live on air for your votes for their chosen album, so that by the end of the show, in about 45 minutes' time, we're able to declare one of their albums, Album of the Week, as this week's winner. So the idea is that by all means do comment along whatever platform you're viewing on, if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook or indeed YouTube. And you can just very easily comment by just commenting underneath the post or indeed joining in the chat facility on YouTube. And we will be able to pick that up. And that's the way also that we'll be asking you to vote towards the end of the show. And my colleague Sophie will be tallying the votes towards working out who will be this week's album winner. And I'm very pleased to say that I have persuaded 4 of our loyal students have given up their lunch hour to be here this week for a rather unique blend of albums this week. So there's something to look forward to. As always, each week is always about widening our listening experiences and stumbling across albums either that we used to know and love but that we've forgotten about, or which we didn't know, which is an opportunity to discover some new repertoire. And that's certainly been the case for me this week with some of the week's albums chosen. So without further ado, let me begin by inviting each of our guests into the studio. And first up, broadcasting from Medway is Nathan. Nathan, welcome.
Hiya.
Nice to see you. How's life with you? All good?
Trucking along nicely, thank you.
So there's no prizes for guessing which album, which band you've chosen, as if viewers wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah, I thought I'd make it very evidently clear.
Brilliant. And you've taken away, we've managed to lure you away from your course. You're studying music performance and production, aren't you, over in Medway?
Yeah, I am. I'm drumming on that course, so it's good fun. That's
right. We've seen you in action on Instagram and so on with kind of playing some Muse, which I'm sure will please Emily, who I believe has nominated a Muse album. So your loyalty's divided and you've gone for Kasabian this week.
Yeah, I couldn't tread on her toes, so I had to go in a different direction.
Fantastic. Anyway, thanks very much for joining us. Very nice to see you.
Thank you.
And next into the studio then, let's introduce Emily. Emily, welcome.
Hi.
How's life with you? And again, you've gone for the let me make my band loyalty very clear.
Yeah, I got my Muse t-shirt on.
Fantastic. And so, yes, you saw Nathan's Muse. It was a Hysteria that you recorded, I think, Nathan.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So was there a danger that you thought Nathan might steal your thunder, but actually it's okay because he went with a different album?
No, he definitely knew that I was going to pick Muse.
Excellent. So he's graciously stepped aside and chose a different band. You worked together. Well done, team. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Emily. Very nice to see you. And then next into the studio, also broadcasting from Medway, is second year Harry. Hello, Harry.
Hey, you all right?
I'm good, thank you. Just to explain to the viewers that Harry is grappling with slightly unpredictable Wi-Fi. So don't be alarmed if Harry occasionally appears to freeze, but the audio connection is very good. So when it comes to extolling the virtues of Harry's album, which, again, there's a small visual clue for viewers at home, is that right?
Yes, of course, as you can see by my T-shirt. Got to rep the band much.
Excellent, good. So, and you're a second year, aren't you? You're a guitarist on the music technology and audio production course. Is that right?
Yeah, I am. So I can play and record guitar. Microphone as well.
Excellent, good. Well, nice to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. And then finally into the studio, competing viewers for your votes this week is David. David, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be back.
I'm going to say you're a veteran of these, and you've done a couple, haven't you? Similarly, broadcasting. Now, you win the prize for broadcasting from the furthest distance away from the command bunker in Hampshire still.
I think I do this week, which is quite nice. Sort of a hollow victory, but I'll take it. So,
Your course title is the most confusing because it's got the word physics in it about 14 times. Physics, 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 and physics, isn't it? There's astrophysics in there and space science and something. Just remind me what it is exactly.
astronomy, space science, and astrophysics. Even I get it wrong. Yeah, that's my course.
Excellent, good. And you're a saxophonist as well, aren't you? In the big band,
I am.
and in the chamber choir. So
Yeah, try to do my bit.
when circumstances allow. So excellent. Well,
yeah.
nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And then lastly into the studio here, sharing her reactions as we go along to the albums, is my colleague Sophie. Sophie, hello.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
So here we are. The gladiators are assembled. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. So what I'll be doing is inviting each of our guests into Speaker's Corner to share with us the album that they've chosen and so on. So Nathan, let's begin with you in Speaker's Corner. So for us and for the viewers at home, tell us the album that you've chosen and why you've chosen it.
Okay, so this week I've picked Kasabian, and the specific album I've picked is Empire. It's their second album. It was released in 2006. And for me, I really like how experimental some of the music is, and the fact that the album is so underrated. When it comes to Kasabian being such a huge band, you don't hear much about this album, and I thought I'd shed some light on it this week. I think the most popular song on the album would be Shoot the Runner, which you might not know the name of, but potentially you would know it if you heard it. And I think the album generally, when I got asked what album I wanted to pick, I decided what album would I want to listen to, like just the one album just for the rest of time. And I think this album has a little bit of everything for me. Every song adds something.
Fantastic. So it's obviously an album that's important to you. Do you remember where you first were when you heard it or when you bought it? Did you have it on CD or?
I must have been very young, probably 7 or 8. And, at that age, you're very impressionable. So for me, it left quite a lasting. And that was when it was on CD as well, because, you listen to a whole album when it's on CD, you go and buy it and you listen to the whole thing. So I know every sort of track on that record. And it's very rhythmic actually, as probably looking at it. So as a drummer, I love that. I love something that's got something that I can grapple onto. It's nice.
Especially for that very kind of tech trippy apnea, that wonderfully kind of crazed techno thing, which is quite a departure from the other ones, isn't it? In the rest of the album, that's it's almost like a kind of digital centerpiece somehow. Yeah,
and it's got a lot of different elements going on. I mean, the use of strings in this album is brilliant because it can just add some massive cinematic moments to these songs that otherwise you wouldn't necessarily expect it to have. For me, I feel like it's such a well-rounded album that it can't be ignored.
So if there was only one album that you could pluck from the 21st century, if it was on fire, that would be the one you'd choose, would it?
Yeah, I think I'd have to go for it. I mean, Kasabian have more well-known albums, but for me, being a Kasabian fan, this one is my favourite. Fantastic. Yes, it's not always about the most commercially successful album, is it? It's about the one that kind of speaks to you individually and has memories of the impact it had on you when you first heard it. So brilliant. Thank you very much to Nathan, who is there hoping for your votes, ladies and gentlemen at home, for Kasabian's Empire. So Emily, let's invite you into Speaker's Corner following that then. So similarly to Nathan, tell us and tell the viewers at home the album that you've chosen and why it is that you've chosen it.
I've picked Muse's Origin of Symmetry. It was their second album, released in 2001, I think, which was a few months before I was born, maybe. And I think the first album that they did was quite angry, quite grunge, and this was the start of their sound that everyone knows Muse has. And I think that the track that opens this album, they literally couldn't have picked a better one. It's Newborn. and I think it's just got everything in that everyone associates with Muse. It's got keys, it's got a heavy bass line, got a really heavy guitar solo. I mean, for me, Muse are one of the reasons that I play bass. I think I was influenced by them when I was really young, and yeah, this album definitely had a part in that.
And of course, we've heard you play Red Hot Chili Peppers as a bassist. You're obviously influenced by Flea as well. So there's obviously something about the bass player from Muse that particularly inspired you, especially since you ended up being a bass player.
Yeah.
Excellent. And do you remember where you were when you first heard the album, or when you first purchased it? The impact that it had on you when you first listened through to it?
I think the first time I heard any of it, I must have been really, really young, like 6 or 7, and I heard my sister play the guitar riff for Plug-in Baby. So that's probably when I started listening to the album.
Because it's quite. I didn't know this album before you suggested it, so I went away and listened to it, and I thought, is that, when I sort of staggered away from having listened to the first 4, I thought, is there a genre called hysterical rock? And I mean that in the nicest way, because it really is. It's just fueled by this kind of relentless energy and drive, isn't it? And you're right, it does. It has got that particular Muse sound. I think, Sophie, that was something that you commented on when we were talking about it before. Is that it creates that particular Muse sound world very early on. People might know it from later albums, but the fact that it's there on that second album is and it's there fully formed quite so early on is quite something. And it's kind of, it's got. When I first heard it and I wasn't paying attention, I thought I'd strayed off Spotify into a Rage Against the Machine, who I also like, kind of playlists and so on. So it's nice to hear those kind of influences there as well. But is there a standout track for you on the album apart from Newborn?
It's probably one of the underappreciated ones, Space Dementia.
Mm-hmm.
I just think you can really tell like Matt Bellamy's classical influences in it, because he's a classically trained pianist, and you can really tell in that track in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's quite an interesting, sprawling sound world, isn't it? That's created by that album. So it's a very engaging listen. So thank you, Emily. Hoping to persuade you viewers at home to vote for her nomination, which is Muse's Origin of Symmetry. Fantastic. So next into the speakers corner, then let's bring Harry. Harry, you seem to be on mute, so hopefully we can persuade you to, unless your way of enthusing people is just simply to keep the T-shirt on and just point numerous times. But hopefully we can persuade you to unmute. Are you there?
Oh.
Possibly.
There's an unmute.
Are you ready to roll, Harry?
Ooh. May have to come back to him.
Yes, yeah. This is where we go. Apologies, viewers. We're obviously experiencing some technical difficulties, but we'll give Harry a chance to sort his tech out. So, David, let's move you into Speaker's Corner. So, again, for us and for the viewers at home, tell us the album that you've chosen and why it is that you've chosen it.
Oh.
So this week I have decided to go for something quite different to the others, I'd say, in the form of Partita for 8 Voices by Caroline Shaw. Hello, Harry.
We can, Harry. You're slightly fragmentary. So we've decided to give you a breather to sort of sort out your tech issues, and we'll move David into Speaker's Corner for the time being. So he's stolen your space just to give you a bit of time to sort out your settings. So anyway, David, yes, tell us what the album is.
Right, I'll try and drag it on so it's a bit longer. So this is an album. It's really tricky. So this is my 3rd time on the webcast. So trying to think of albums that like really inspire me, I think is what I was looking for. So like Nathan was saying, like if I had one album that I could just listen to for the rest of the time, I don't think I could answer it. which isn't very helpful for this podcast. So it's quite nice to be able to come back on. So this is one of those albums that I think would be in my selection, and it was an album that I discovered in college when I was studying music and working on like composition, and already loved weird contemporary music and choral music in particular. And I stumbled upon this, and it was amazing. It's so weird and sort of forward thinking, and uses so many different techniques and ways of thinking about how the voice can make music that it really inspired me. So it's really one of those top listens that I could keep going back to. I was actually, this week when I was doing some research into it, which is, I don't think I'd really properly looked into it before, and I discovered loads of cool things about the album. So throughout the album, there's a sort of a motif of different weird, on the face of it, sort of phrases that seem to be directions and weird numbers. And it turned out that these are all references to an artwork that Caroline Shaw had seen by Sol LeWitt called War Drawing 305. And the premise of this artwork is that the artist effectively comes up with a list of instructions, and then there's a separate artist that goes in to a studio or museum or wherever and follows these instructions and creates this artwork. So they have it's drawing lines between different points on the wall, and it ends up being this huge thing of 100 points in the end. And that's the thing that they reference throughout. And I just thought it was amazing, because it really feels like that joining together of different ideas throughout the whole thing. And yeah, like knowing where it comes from, it really makes sense, which is fascinating. And there's uses of stuff like throat singing and just use of breath and sort of wordless melodies that, yeah, I think really give the album such a unique feel. And yeah, I really love it. I think it's really cool. I think I also remember playing it. I think I was in the office with Sophie one day, and I remember mentioning it. And I think after must have been about 5 minutes, you said, "Could I turn it off?" I completely appreciate it. It's fair enough. Yeah, no, I think I remember it yesterday, but if I'd shown it to you. But yeah, so that is my album. I hope you vote for it.
So there we are. But this is normally where I'd hand over to Sophie for her reactions, but clearly we've preempted that with her reaction, obviously very memorable and so on. But, I mean, and you're right, David. It's quite far removed from the kind of the other types of albums that we've had to listen to this week. But it's very. It seems to be like a hymn to the human voice, isn't it? And the different ways that the human voice can express things and so on. And it sort of takes lots of bits of different things, doesn't it? And puts them all together. I mean, it's expertly performed, isn't it, by Room Full of Teeth? You know, the intonation and the ensemble. It is absolutely flawless. Yeah. Somehow, and it really does. It's very striking because of that, I think.
Yeah, there's an amazing performance on YouTube that I was watching just before this, actually. And it's just fascinating to watch, because like the connection that you have to have between all the different performers is, yeah. I mean, as someone who sings in choirs, it's amazing that these people can manage to do what they're doing. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. Fantastic. So thank you to David, who's there hoping to persuade you viewers to vote for Partita for 8 Voices by Caroline Shaw. Are you being very quiet about the fact that it won the Pulitzer Prize that year?
Well, I got laughed at last time for mentioning the album that I chose and got an award, so I decided not to. But thank you. Yes, it did win a Pulitzer Prize in 2013, making Caroline Shaw the youngest person to win the music award, I believe, at 30 years old. So
it was, yeah. When it comes to sales figures, you know, I'm not sure how well it would fare compared to Kasabian and Muse and Kiss, but you never know.
They work in different circles, I suppose.
Terrific. Anyway, thanks very much. So, Harry, it looks as though your technological issues have been resolved. You're back with us.
Yeah, I hope so. Can you hear me all right?
Fantastic, great. So I'm sure we can make it work.
Okay,
so for the last time this afternoon, so tell us and the viewers at home the album that you've chosen and why it is that you've chosen it.
All right, so I've picked Destroyer by Kiss. Kiss is the sort of band where they have sort of their best songs spread out over different albums, so it's quite hard to narrow it down to one because it's more, if you want all their best songs, you really need to listen to live recordings and stuff like that. But I had to pick this just because it's probably their most famous album, going platinum and all sorts. But it reminds me of when I was 16, and it's kind of like an album for all time, especially with this band. And the stories about they had a producer called Bob Ezrin, Alice Cooper, and at this point in Kiss's career, they had just become a bigger band, but they sort of just found themselves in deep waters because it basically there were all these stories about Bob Ezrin who used to like wear a whistle around his neck and like call them all little campers and everything when he was getting them to record, and he used to make them stand in certain places and you can only stop playing when you're told to, you know, that sort of thing. And stories of if they missed a session that they would get replaced by a different musician and that sort of thing, and trying to get everyone to play. But no, it's just a good album. It's got funny because the part of the point it's set up so that they're more like 4 different frontmen instead of 1. So you've an interesting way where all the different band members over the years try to one up each other. So you've got a lot of really good writing in there, but also kind of a lot of really clearly done writing. So some of it's a little bit more just trying to get record sales than actually write good songs, but some of it's also really good as well. So, you know, it's different over the years, and they're also one of the bands that tends to fall out the most. They're now only tour with only 2 of the original members. So yeah, they're constantly fighting and stuff. But, you know, it's quite funny. And over the years, it's changed so much because they never really sort of stopped, which make a little bit more sense. But they went as different songwriting approaches, especially from, you know. But yeah, also there was to go on to that frontman point. They actually did a tour without their lead singer because everyone else in the band sings, so they just did that. Yeah, there's not much more, but it's just a cool and very original band. Basically, like the live show thing in rock music.
And I think that's it's interesting that you're talking about how sort of, you know, destructive the band is internally. You know, that's come up before when yesterday's listening party, Sophie and I, that we were at, was Rumours by Fleetwood Mac, which is famously a masterpiece born out of the band's tearing itself apart during the recording process, and band members divorcing other band members and finding other boyfriends and writing songs about how their boyfriend is better than the former partner and so on. So it's, you know, and recently we also had the Gallagher brothers, Oasis. Last week's show was What's the Story, Morning Glory. Similarly, you know, a band riven with falling out and squabbling siblings and so on, and yet out of that strife can come sort of, you know, fantastic productivity, and obviously that's something for this album as well. You know, the feuding band creates this kind of sprawling rock masterpiece, as you say, that went platinum. Terrific. So that's Harry asking you to vote for Destroyer by Kiss. So, Sophie, you've been listening, as I know you do each week, diligently along to the records chosen. And of course, this week we'll have had quite some distance between the opposite ends of the spectrum. How was it for you?
Yeah, great. I mean, I have to agree with what you said at the top of the show. This kind of being introduced to new stuff you never listened to before, or re-embracing an old favorite. For me, Kasabian, I bought that when it came out. I was significantly older than you, Nathan, at the time, but yes, I had it on CD. And that's it. And I bought it for the single Shoot the Runner, because again, it's just and I can see why as a drummer you would particularly like the change of rhythms and everything in many of the tracks on the album are really original for that time, because of course there was a big explosion of kind of indie guitar bands. I mean, loads of them, don't they? And obviously I can't think of any of them right now, but at the time I remember seeing loads of them live and things, and they were really quite different, because they then also used quite a lot of synths and keyboards and doubled it up with guitars. And yeah, really they were. And it's funny because this is the album I only really know of theirs, and I when I was looking into it all again kind of thing and doing a bit of research or background reading up, I hadn't realized how massive they had become, because of course they slightly just slipped off my radar being an old lady, you know. And it was just really bizarre. But yeah, I thank you again for reintroducing it. I will definitely stay on my playlist. Now, the Kiss is so interesting. I was saying to Dan, because this album came out when I was a bairn, as they say in primary school, you know, the way that young people hear like apocryphal tales and kind of get all weird ideas. And of course, it was a similar time as punk, and there are lots of these apocryphal tales about kind of self-mutilation on stage and blood all over the place and on microphones. And I don't know, for some reason I thought they would be more like Slipknot or something like that. I thought that would be the sound world that because I didn't know Kiss. You know, I'd always been a bit scared of them, you know, because of these tales from my childhood. And then listening to it, I was like, oh, okay. Right, it's really tuneful. Oh, there's lots of sweeping strings and tubular bells. I mean, I know you get some of the kind of God of Thunder, Kneel Before Me and all that, which kind of slightly dials into that little stereotyping I had in my head. But apart from that, it was really enjoyable, really melodic. No, it's extraordinary. I was really, really gobsmacked. So yeah, really, thanks again introducing me to Kiss. It's not really, rock is not really a world I kind of really inhabit or listen to. There are overlaps, I think, because obviously bands like Kasabian might be called rock, and Muse, I don't know. I really don't know how all these genres kind of work, kind of thing, other than they use amplified guitars and basses. I don't know. And Muse, yeah, God, I love Muse. I was telling Dan, fessing up, I got into I mean, I was aware of them, but the third album, Black Holes and Revelations, was the one I bought. And I was saying to Dan, bit of an embarrassing story, but I loved it so much. I would just slightly kind of go, ooh, inside when I'd start the album and the tracks. That's really embarrassing, isn't it? Fess up to the internet world. But I just loved that album, you know, like you do when you're a kid. And obviously I was a grown woman at that point, so no excuses. So, and as Dan said, I had said to him earlier, I was amazed at how the seeds of that, because the sound in the third album is so distinct, but those seeds were already there in that second album. Like you said, you know, they got such a distinct sound. I saw them live at Tea in the Park, God, years ago, back in the 2007 or something like that. And I couldn't believe the sound they made with just three guys on the stage. I kept, because I was to one side, near the front, so I was trying to lean around and going, surely there are other people on the stage. This kind of noise that was coming out. I mean, I'm sure they had some kind of looping backing tracks and stuff, but that said, even with that, it was incredible. I mean, and his voice is extraordinary, really, when you unpack it. You know, they describe it as falsetto. I mean, I know it is, but it's not a reedy little one, is it? I mean, it's really, and the tunes, and sometimes when people put things like classical, you know, these arpeggios and like he does with the keyboards, like you were saying, it can sound a bit pompous or inauthentic or something. I don't know, but that just never like that with Muse. It just always feels really complete. And that cover of Feel Good just must be right up there, you know, like with the White Stripes, Don't Know What to Do With Myself and stuff. You know, when people bring something to a cover, that's another point I've made many times with Dan, will be bored of me saying it, but most covers don't bring anything to the original, and so I don't know why people bother. You got to really be doing something different with it. Anyway, there we go. Muse can do no wrong either. And the Partita, the Catherine Shaw. Sorry, Dave. I realised why I said that. So can you turn it off now? You can't not actively listen to it.
Yeah, no, yeah, I get what you
mean. You can't have it as background. It's not. You can't. There's so much going on and chatter and everything. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of proper music, isn't it? I don't know how else to describe it. It's extraordinary. It really just, whether you like it or not is neither here nor there, is it? It's just extraordinary what they can do. And I kept thinking, I was saying to Dan, the only other thing I kind of know like this is the Berio sequenza that he wrote for his wife. Do you know that? Catherine Barbarian and stuff. And I had to do it once. It's a graphic score as well, and it's all, kind of pictures and everything. And I thought, gosh, I wonder how Catherine Shaw scores this. And I've just looked it up, and it's absolutely bog standard music notation. I couldn't really get away with it. When you got all the Mongolia or the throat singing and all that, I was thinking, how on earth would you notate that? And it's just really straightforward. I mean, there's obviously stuff written on it, but it's, I mean,
I think she sings with them as well. So I imagine there's quite a lot of sort of internal stuff.
Yes, and devised and kind of done together. Yeah, absolutely.
But I know what you mean. It's just fascinating to find out like how it all got pieced together.
And obviously there's all sorts of other things I can't help thinking of when I listen to. So like when it goes the side, all I can see is Sandra Bullock in The Proposal, if anybody knows that film where she's dancing around the fire. Okay, I'll stop there then.
Tumbleweed.
Yeah, I know. But also, nobody else will probably remembers, but Dan, you might remember the car advert for the Honda Civic. Do you remember when the choir are singing all the sounds of the car, like the windscreen wipers and everything? It really reminded me of that. Back in 2008, there was a Honda Civic advert, and I thought it was made up. They were just miming or something. And my mate who sings at in the Covent Garden Opera Chorus says, no, it's all real. Was my friend, he knew a couple of people in the choir. So it is all human voices. So it is extraordinary what the human voice alone can do.
I think that's kind of what's very, that maybe that's the nature of that piece. Because when I was listening to it, I thought, I'm sure I've heard other the techniques that it uses. I've heard them used in other things. I'm a big not Laurie Anderson, the American Dolman music. Help me out here, Sophie.
Is that not Laurie Anderson?
No, Dawn.
Yes, Dawn. I won't say Upshaw.
No. What's?
Shall I Google it for you?
Meredith Monk.
Oh yes, sorry, yes. Right,
Meredith Monk, Dawn, one of the pieces that she wrote, and so on.
And, sorry, I had Dorman music.
And Stockhausen's Stimmung and bits of Laurie Anderson and so on. So I felt as though I'd heard sort of those things used before, but then to hear them used in that way together in a kind of Gesamtkunstwerk, it was very striking, I think. Yes, and as Sophie said, it makes you listen to it. You've really got to pay attention because there's so many things, so many vocal techniques being used, the chattering, the breathing, the singing, the glissandi, there's all the sort of range of vocal effects means that you can't just put it on the background while you're cooking or making a cup of tea. It demands your attention, doesn't it?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Which I found while I was driving. I was like, right, better turn that off.
And Emily, the album that you've chosen, one of the things I do in advance of these shows is I kind of I look back in time to see what other albums were competing with it for it to be one of the most successful albums of 2001. And we went from cultural extremes, from Teenage Dirtbag by Wheatus, which some of you might know, to Kylie Minogue's I Can't Get You Out of My Head. So you've got the sort of pop princess disco queen at one end and, Wheatus at the other end, and then Muse sort of sitting atop both of them. It's quite a striking year. Gorillaz were around that year, and Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and so on. So, that kind of emo-esque and so on. But I think Muse, what I liked about, and I think you too, Sophie, you mentioned Tom York, didn't you? the vocal line and so on. It's got that sort of slightly ethereal Radiohead. Are you a Radiohead fan as well, Emily?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that kind of that way that Tom York has of sort of sitting ethereally on top, and his vocal line just glides around and so on. So again, that ticked a box for me in terms of listening to that one, and the scream ager, that sort of space age feel to it, all the kind of bubbling electronics and so on. It was, and then it ends with that kind of. Sophie, you were talking about the integrity of using kind of classical instruments and piano and so on. There's a church organ in Megalomania, isn't there? In the last one, so it gives it that kind of titanic, colossal sound world, which I think is a very sort of epic way to end an epic album. So it works really well. But and Harry, you pointed out Bob Ezrin, the producer for the Kiss album. That ticked a box for me again because he worked on a couple of Pink Floyd albums. He was the producer for Division Bell. And I think A Momentary Lapse of Reason as well. I think he was also producer on The Wall, but that's a sort of sprawling concept aspect of Pink Floyd that I think is just slightly too exaggerated for me. But Division Bell and Momentary Lapse of Reason are fantastic. So when it became apparent that he'd worked on that, I was thinking, oh, good, there's another check box.
He also worked with Alice Cooper, which I thought was maybe a slightly kind of overlap. Oh, did you say that? Sorry, I didn't hear that. Yeah, and because
I'm not
there are
sure
bits
if I
of
did
that
actually,
album.
but yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, there are bits of that album that I think, oh yeah, I can hear. There's a similar kind of sound as what I know of Alice Cooper, which is precious little. I apologise.
But similarly, Nathan, for when I was looking up 2006. So again, Empire was battling with Iron Maiden's Matter of Life and Death. You've got Red Hot Chili Peppers in there, which I know you know, Emily. You had Amy Winehouse's Back to Black, that sort of slightly miserable, sort of really slightly self-indulgent London. I don't know what it would be. Sort of competing with it, and then you've got Placebo and Primal Scream, who are sort of in the same area as I'm probably going to offend people, but I see sort of Primal Scream and in a sort of lineage as well. And they talk about Oasis, don't they? And Oasis looking for a band onto which they could hand the torch for the Britpop thing, and Kasabian was the band that fell into the right place at the right time. So it's interesting to look at some of the other albums. I never expected to be talking about a Kylie Minogue album on this show, competing with Muse, but there you are. So at this point in the show, viewers at home, wherever you are and whatever you're watching on, my job is now to start encouraging you to vote. So just to quickly recap the nominations that we've had this week. Nathan's here hoping that you'll support his choice for Kasabian's Empire. Emily's hoping to persuade you to vote for Origin of Symmetry by Muse. Harry is hoping that you'll back him with his support for Destroyer by Kiss. And David is hoping to persuade you to vote for the vocal trickery and intricacy of Partita for 8 Voices by Caroline Shaw. So whatever platform you're viewing on, just drop your vote in the comments and we will be able to pick that up. And Sophie will be keeping an eye on that so that in about 5 minutes' time, hopefully, we can tally the votes and you'll have propelled one of our panellists into being this week's album winner with Album of the Week. So, Sophie, if you did have to choose an album this week, which one would it be?
Oh, crikey. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but it would be Muse. Only just because I'm not a mega fan, I don't think, like Emily, but I love that third album so much. And I will definitely keep this album because I don't know why I never bothered looking into their back catalogue after I had got so nutty about that third album. So yeah, I think that would get a nudge of a nose ahead. I'm not sure I can do active listening albums like Dave Curtis.
It's fine.
There we are, Nathan. There's one in the bag for you. Thank you, Karen. Go to Medway, voting for one of her favourite bands, Kasabian. So there we are.
Excellent.
That's obviously a shared musical interest. What was it about Kasabian and Nathan that made you? Did they inspire you to take up the drums? Was it that band in particular?
I don't think it actively inspired me in a way that I recognised, but it was definitely something that sat with me for a very long time. And then only in hindsight, looking back, could I really understand that the rhythmic elements influenced me further down the line. It's something that sort of stuck up here. And one day it came out in my playing, and I'm sort of sat there thinking, oh, yeah, I wonder where this comes from. And, thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like Kasabian has got some really great stuff when it comes to, everything they do.
And I think that's interesting, is it? Sometimes you kind of assimilate these influences without noticing or without realizing, because you're kind of really listening and it's made a huge impact, but you're not necessarily conscious of it at the time. And then sometime later on, you'll be kind of playing and thinking, gosh, this is where I notice I'm a very, very huge fan of Chick Corea, nowhere anything like Chick Corea or Keith Jarrett, but aspirationally, those are my kind of jazz piano playing heroes. And occasionally I'll stumble across some bit of improvisation, think, that sounds like third or fourth hand Chick Corea that he might have left on the floor, which he wasn't very happy with. But there is that sense that you do, if you kind of listen to them and you like them sufficiently, that you take on, you've really assimilated some of their playing style, and that comes out in your own playing without your necessarily realizing it. Is there anyone else? Emily, you're you said that you're influenced by Muse bass player, and Sophie and I have heard you play a bit of Flea with Chili Peppers. Are there other bassists that you listen to?
I have just had to change my microphone. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, absolutely, yeah. If you hadn't told us, we wouldn't have noticed.
In terms of other bassists, I like Chris from Muse, obviously Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. I like playing a bit of Bon Jovi. I think the bass is a lot more interesting than people would think. The bass of Bon Jovi is quite good. Fleetwood Mac. Yeah, and I like a bit of sort of Chic and Parliament, funky stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we've Jaco Pastorius is up there, one of my kind of bass heroes, from Weather Report and that kind of hugely influential jazz kind of fusion thing of the kind of late 70s and so on. But Flea, I mean, absolutely, yes. You can't he's a sort of colossus, isn't he? Sort of. What about U2? They're a very kind of Marmite band, aren't they? U2, people either love them or hate them. Where do you stand on the U2 issue?
I'm going to be honest, I haven't listened to much of them. Yeah.
That's fair enough. How about you, Nathan? You too, yes or no?
Yes, probably, but you have to be in the right mood for them, because they are I find them very backgroundy. I don't find them very punchy. They're a very mellow band, in my opinion, apart from some of the ones like Vertigo or those ones really sort of stuck out as bit more energy and stuff, but I wouldn't say I'd actively listen to them, but I like having them in the background maybe.
Yeah, those kind of curtains of sound from the guitar and the effects pedal, they're very sort of you either love them or hate them, I think, but I think that's partly why I think it works in the background, because it's just those kind of shimmering colours. Are you
talking about U2?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right. See, I wouldn't have said they were Marmite, because I think they're all a bit meh. I wouldn't think it was you love them or you hate them. I'm just like,
So for any future viewers who are thinking about being future panelists, tread carefully when it comes to asking Sophie to listen to you too. What about you, Harry? You too, yes or no?
Nah, I guess not much. All right, I like it still.
And David, U2, where do you stand on U2?
Yeah, about in the middle. I think I remember, was it them that had the album sort of forced upon everyone with an iPhone?
Yes.
At one point.
Yes.
I think that
automatically downloaded it.
Yeah. Yeah.
iTunes.
I did give it a listen and it went great. So it was a bit annoying.
Interesting, isn't it? All the musers are a bit meh about U2.
Yeah.
Yes, that kind of enforced marketing by making it a compulsory download really sort of put quite a few people off, didn't they? Mm. Yeah. If they'd done the same with the Caroline Shaw Partita for 8 voices, who knows?
Could be huge.
Brilliant. Well, as we come to the end of the show, we have had but a single vote, and it's been for Kasabian. So as things stand, Nathan, it looks suspiciously like you might be this week's winner, unless there's anyone who's feverishly scrambling towards their keyboard now for a last-minute vote to sway the result. But thanks to everyone this week. It's been a particularly rock-fueled listening odyssey. But then against that, we've had the sort of the prize-winning vocal trickery of the Caroline Shaw piece. So it's been quite a divergent repertoire listening this, but it's been good fun. And actually, yes, it's part of it is about, as I said at the beginning, widening our listening experiences and so on. So happy to pass your baton on to Nathan. There we are. Well, I think that just about sorts it. There we are, Nathan. We're very pleased to say that you are this week's winner with Kasabian's Empire as Album of the Week.
Thank you very much. I didn't expect it, so that's good. Thank you.
Excellent, brilliant. So thanks to everyone for taking part, to Harry, to David, to Emily, and to Nathan, and to Sophie, as always, for being part of the pop punditry this week. So all that remains is for me to say thank you very much for watching. Vinyl Countdown will be back soon, but in the meantime, do stay safe and well, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you for watching.